Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. I hope you all have had a fantastic day. I thought we'd sit down today and look at Everton in a little bit more of a positive light than what we have done over the course of the last couple of weeks and months. And I haven't completely changed my feelings on the situation. I haven't completely changed my feelings on the manager. I still think that Everton would be extremely lucky to preserve their Premier League status at the end of this season. I think it would take a minor miracle. I don't think it needed to take a miracle, but at this stage, given the recent results, given the fact that we didn't beat Leicester City on Monday night and the fixtures that we've got coming up, I think I know that we are heavily relying on other sides that are in and around us to drop points and to maybe not win a game that they're expected to win, and for Everton to pretty much be perfect over the course of the next 4 games. And by pretty much be perfect, I mean I don't think we can genuinely afford to lose more than one of those games, and one of those games includes Manchester City at Goodison Park, which will of course be an extremely difficult game. But I thought, you know what, a lot of the post-Leicester content was quite pessimistic, I want to say. I don't really want to say negative, because I think for it to be positive or negative, there sort of has to be a middle ground for it, for you to have a positive or negative opinion. I don't really think there's a middle ground for the situation at the moment. I don't think any Evertonian would look at the situation that we're in and think that there's many positives from it. But I do want to talk today about the possibility of Everton staying in the Premier League, because it isn't over. At the end of the day, as much as we may feel like this season is only heading in one direction, and as much as we might feel that because of previous results, not being able to beat Leicester City, not being able to beat Fulham, not being able to beat Nottingham Forest away, that, this is the season Everton will go down. There is still a possibility that Everton remain in the Premier League. There's 4 games to go, which of course means that there is 12 points up to grab. Of course, if we get 3 against Brighton, 3 against Manchester City, that is 6, and then of course 3 against Wolves, 3 against Bournemouth, so 12 points still left to pick up. Now, of course, if Everton were to win all of those games, which is about as likely as me to win the lottery, which isn't very likely considering I don't do the lottery, but that would of course see Everton on 41 points, which would comfortably see us safe, of course, and at the moment would see us in front of Crystal Palace, who are currently in 11th place. Obviously, A, that isn't going to happen. We're not going to win every one of our remaining 4 fixtures, and B, other teams around us, I'm sure, will pick up points as well. But it would see us safe, because the teams that are in and around this relegation battle aren't likely to pick up another 12 points before the end of the season. And neither are Everton, by the way. Neither are Everton. And when you look at the teams that are currently in and around our position at the moment, I remember sitting here not so long ago, a couple of months ago, and talking about the relegation battle really being between 9 sides. It was pretty much everybody from 11th downwards that was separated by 4 or 5 points. That obviously, that gap has grown massively over the course of the last few weeks. The separation now is from Nottingham Forest, who currently sit in 18th on 30 points, to Crystal Palace, who sit 11th on 40 points. So it's a 10-point gap, and it's obviously means that teams like Crystal Palace, who have got 40 points, are safe, and even teams like Chelsea and Bournemouth, who may still think that they're not absolutely safe, they are. I've seen a few Chelsea fans talking about the possibility of relegation recently, and it's absolutely bonkers that that's even in the conversation. It's bonkers that certain Chelsea fans believe that the clubs that are in and around that relegation battle are capable of winning even 3 of 4 games, and even with 3 of 4 games, that would only put them on the same points as Chelsea. So realistically, I think personally, Palace are safe now in 11th. I think Chelsea and Bournemouth are both safe on 39 points, and I actually think Wolves and West Ham are safe. Wolves on 37, I think, are safe, and West Ham on 34, I think, are safe. Now, don't get me wrong, West Ham could be dragged into it if they aren't to win another game this season, and Leicester, Leeds, Forest, Everton, or even a couple of those teams are to go on a good run, but I highly doubt that to be the case. So I think, personally, at the moment, the relegation battle is between 4 sides. I think Southampton are gone on 24 points currently. I think they're 5 points behind Everton, who are on 29th and 19th, and I just can't see that gap being built back up by Southampton. Don't get me wrong, they may go above Everton, but I can't see them having enough to stay in the division. So I think Southampton are gone. So I think the teams that are fighting for the 2 places are Everton, Nottingham Forest, Leeds United and Leicester City. So 4 teams fighting for 2 positions. And if you have a look at the remaining fixtures for those 4 teams, of course we know Everton's are against Brighton on Monday night away from home. We then have Manchester City at Goodison Park in the penultimate home game of the season. We then have Wolves away from home in the last away game of the season, and Bournemouth at home on the last home game of the season. If you look at the other teams that are in that battle, as I mentioned, some people may disagree. Some people may think that, that West Ham will still be in it or Wolves will still be in it. I don't think they are. But if you look at Leeds fixtures, Leeds have got Manchester City away this weekend. They've got Newcastle United at home the weekend following. Then after that, they've got West Ham United away. And then after that, they've got Tottenham at home. If you have a look at Leicester have got Fulham away this weekend. They then play Liverpool at home, they then play Newcastle away and then play West Ham at home on the final game of the season. And Nottingham Forest have got Southampton at home this weekend, Chelsea away after that, Arsenal at home after that, and then Palace away on the final day of the season. So no real one team with a particularly easy run there. And that means that obviously it's all up for grabs in terms of who will stay up and who will go down. And there is definitely a world in which Sean Dyche can get enough points out of the next 4 games to see Everton stay in the Premier League. Now, if we have a look at those teams and the games that those teams have got to play, and we just go through it one by one. I mean, Leeds' last 4 fixtures, so they play Manchester City at the weekend, and obviously this is just merely a prediction and a feeling. Of course, a shock result could happen, or Leeds may pick up a win when you don't expect them to pick up a win, etc, etc. But realistically, looking at it, I think they will get beat by Manchester City, and quite comfortably get beat by Manchester City as well. I think they will get beat by Newcastle, because Newcastle are a team that will still probably feel that their top 4 place isn't quite solidified, especially given teams like Liverpool, who are on a really good run at the moment and are picking up wins, on a consistent basis. Newcastle will feel they have to win that game. So I think Leeds will lose their next 2, and then that leaves them with West Ham away, which they may get a point out of maximum, and Tottenham at home on the final day of the season, which, again, they may win given the home advantage. But I'm going to go with... I'm going to say Leeds will get 3 points maximum before the end of the season. I will give them that win against Tottenham, because I think Tottenham will have nothing to play for, and it might be a situation where Leeds need to win. I think, I'll be honest, I think they'll lose to West Ham away. I think they'll lose to Newcastle, and I think they'll lose to Manchester City. If you look at Leicester's running, I think Leicester have got probably the easier running out of everybody. Maybe Forest, really, but Leicester certainly, I think they will get something at Fulham away, but I only think they will get a point. I think they will lose to Liverpool. I think they will lose to Newcastle, but I think they will beat West Ham. So I think Leicester will have 4 points. So that puts Leicester on another 4 points. So we've got Leeds, who I think will get another 3. And I think we've got Leicester, who will get another 4. You then look at Nottingham Forest. They play Southampton at home, which they will win. So that will be 3. They play Chelsea away, which, given Chelsea's, if you were to look at that fixture on paper, you would say Chelsea would win that all day long. But given Chelsea's form, Lampard, I don't even think he's picked up a single point since coming into Chelsea. I think he's lost every game. I'm going to say that will be a point. I think they'll lose to Arsenal away. And I think they will, again, the final day of the season is always a difficult one, because you don't know whether they'll be safe or whether they'll be still fighting for survival. But I'm going to say that they will lose to Palace away. I'm going to say that they'll pick up 4 points as well. So that's 3 points for Leeds and 4 points for Leicester and Nottingham Forest. So that will put Leeds United on 33 points. It would put Forest on 34 and Leicester on 34. So that would mean that in order for Everton to get the 33 points to match Leeds United, we would have to pick up 4 points between now and the end of the season. We'd have to pick up 5 points to get to my expected 34-point mark for Leicester and Nottingham Forest. Now, is it possible that Everton pick up 4 points between now and the end of the season? As I mentioned, with those predictions, that would have me thinking that it would put us on the same points as Leeds. Yes, it is. However, if Leeds win one of those games, and even if Everton do pick up 4 points, that only puts us both on 33, and Leeds United's goal difference at the minute is one better than Everton, so the stress on the final day of the season would be absolutely horrific. Now, realistically, looking at Everton's fixtures between now and the end of the season, we've got Brighton away, we've got Manchester City at Goodison, we have got Wolves away, and we've got Bournemouth at home. So let's just analyse them as they are. Brighton away will be extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Is it possible Everton can get something out of that game? Absolutely. Is it likely Everton can get something out of that game? I don't know, if I'm being honest with you. If you were to ask me now, am I confident? I would say no, because I'm not confident based on any away game. But on the back of the Leicester performance, I think if we play like that, I think we could get a point at Brighton, maximum a point. So that's 1 point. I think we'll lose to City away. And listen, stranger things have happened. Frank Lampard, I think, has got 1 Premier League point in his last 20-odd games managed, and that was against City at the Etihad with Everton. So, stranger things have happened, and Everton beating City at Goodison Park, but given the situation, given City are fighting for the league, etc., they're just a different force at the moment, so I think City will quite comfortably win at Goodison. Then you've got Wolves away and Bournemouth away. I'm going to bet that we beat Bournemouth on the final day of the season, because I do think that this will go down to the final day of the season, and I think it will be a case of Everton needing to win, and even then not necessarily knowing whether we're completely safe until we see the other results. So I think we'll beat Bournemouth away, Bournemouth at home, and then Wolves away. Again, I can only see a point because I can't see Everton winning another away game this season. Now, that will put us on an extra 5 points, which was, of course, in my predictions, put us above Leeds United, of course, because it will put us on 34, and it will put us joint with Leicester and Nottingham Forest, who, as I've just mentioned, based on my predictions, I think will pick up another 4 points. Now, that will be on the basis that we get a point against Brighton away. If we don't get a point against Brighton away, then as I said, it'll put us on 33 points on the basis that we get a point at Molineux and 3 points against Bournemouth, and that would put us on the same amount of points as Leeds. And as I said, at the moment, we're currently separated by 1 goal. That very well could change given we both play Manchester City over the course of the next 2 weeks. However, Leeds United play Manchester City at the Etihad. Everton, of course, play Manchester City at Goodison Park, so that may have a telling factor. But realistically, we don't want to be sitting here on the last day of the season knowing that it's going down to goal difference to see who survives, because the anxiety will be truly crippling. Now, is it possible Everton pick up more points than that? It's possible. Is it likely? No. And a lot of people I've seen a few people saying, well, we'll beat Wolves away. But I'm sorry, I don't really care how bad certain teams have been this season. I don't really care how bad certain teams' home records are. I am not willing to sit here at the moment and say that Everton will beat anybody away. I'm not. We've won 1 away game all season. We've won 3 away games in the last 2 seasons. Okay, granted, one of them was against Brighton away, ironically, but it was in August. It was at the start of last season. Brighton weren't the team that they are today. They obviously have had a lot of changes in terms of management, and obviously Dan Ashworth has left there now, and it was a completely different scenario. First couple of weeks of the season compared to obviously the last couple of weeks of the season. So I'm not prepared to sit here and say Everton will beat anybody away. I watched us go to Nottingham Forest this season and play a god-awful Nottingham Forest team and throw a lead away twice and only managed to pick up a point. I've watched us play Leeds teams over the last 2 years that have been really poor, and we've only managed to pick up a point. I watched us play Leicester the other night when the game was there for the taking and we couldn't go and get it. I am not willing to sit here and confidently say I think Everton will beat Wolves away. Do I think we can get a point there? Absolutely. Do I think we can get a point at Brighton? Absolutely. But we may be sitting here in 6 weeks' time and Everton is still a Premier League team and we've lost both of those games. But we beat Manchester City against all odds at Goodison, and then we beat Bournemouth at Goodison, so that was an extra 6 points and we stayed up on the back of that. We just don't know. But realistically, looking at the table, I can see us picking up a maximum 5 more points. Minimum none, because, again, you know, I sat here the other week and I said I refuse to believe that there's a world in which Fulham beat Everton at Goodison, and they did. So minimum I could see us picking up is none. Maximum is 5. Now, as I said, 5 would put us level with Nottingham Forest and Leicester in my predictions, and would have Leeds United, you know, obviously going down. But 3 teams go down. So it doesn't really matter whether we're above Leeds United. 3 teams go down. So if we are joint with Forest and Leicester, then you actually look at their goal difference, and Forest's goal difference is significantly worse than Everton's. Leicester have got the best goal difference on -13, which isn't likely to be beaten. Everton's is -25, Forest is -32. So we still could be in a situation at the end of the season where we are saved on the back of goal difference, whether it be, you know, with Forest or, again, 33 points isn't going to be enough now. So realistically, we do need the 5 points, because if we get the same as Leicester and on my predictions, Leeds and on my predictions, if Forest and Leicester do what I think they will do, then we will still go down, because we'll only have 33 points and those 2 teams will have 34 points. Now, obviously, this is just a prediction. This is just me, you know, having a look at the remaining fixtures and sort of picking out who I think will win and who I think will lose. But that realistically means that Everton need to pick up another 5 points. Now, 4 points may be enough, but I honestly think if you're thinking 4 points will be enough, then you are assuming that Forest and Leicester won't pick up another 4 points. Now, I think Forest are nailed on to beat Southampton next Monday night. I think so. That's already 3. That's already 3 points. Southampton may pick up a point, but Forest away to form Southampton, I think they're nailed on. Chelsea away. How can anybody look at Chelsea at any point now and think, yeah, they're guaranteed for the win? So they could pick up a point there, and then okay, they'll lose to Arsenal, I assume. Palace away, again, one of them games they may pick up a point. Who knows? But I think to assume Forest will pick up more than 3 points is quite a safe assumption, given one of their games is against Southampton at home, who they will fancy themselves against, and they've got unbelievably out of form Chelsea to play as well, and Crystal Palace away, who again, as I said, really good at home on the day, but we played them a few weeks ago at home and they weren't great. Leicester, Fulham away, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, West Ham at home. Again, Newcastle away, they will probably lose. Liverpool at home, they'll probably lose given Liverpool's form at the moment. But Fulham away, they could comfortably pick up a point in that game, maybe even 3. And West Ham at home, it doesn't really help that Leeds, Leicester and Everton are all at home on the final day of the season, because we don't really have an advantage there. Because even though Leeds are playing Tottenham and Leicester are playing West Ham, I can see both of those teams winning those last games of the season, because they're at home, the atmosphere will be up for it, and, you know, let's be honest, West Ham will be safe, so they'll have nothing to play for, and Tottenham are Tottenham, and they often throw games away when there's nothing on the line. So yeah, it's really, really, really tight at the moment. As I said, Everton could end up surprising everybody and going and getting a point at Brighton, beating Manchester City against all odds, getting a point at Wolves and beating Bournemouth. Or we might get nothing at Brighton, get battered by City, get a point at Wolves and get 3 at Bournemouth, and then all of a sudden it may come down to goal difference at that point, on the basis that the results go how I expect them to. Sean Dyche can make the difference. This isn't a case of, we just have to sort of sit back and wait and see what happens. Sean Dyche can make the difference. But he absolutely has to get it right. And what he hasn't done in the course of the last 2 months, month and a half, 2 months, he absolutely has not got it right. And whether that be decision making with his team selection, whether that be in-game decision making in terms of his substitutes, whatever it may be, he's got this wrong far too many times for the position that we're in. As I've just said, even if Everton get this perfect, and let's be honest, 2 wins out of 4 would be absolutely perfect, given that we've only won 6 games all season. So it would be a third of our wins all season in 4 games, sorry. In order for him to do that, his decisions have to be spot on. He has to put his personal relationships to one side, and he has to play the best players for the situation. The reality is Sean Dyche was not brave enough to go for that game the other day, and he was asked about this in his press conference today. He was asked about why he didn't bring any substitutes on in the last 20 minutes against Leicester when they were tired and we were tired and the game was open and there for the taking. And he said, with rather sarcastic look on his face, you do realise that substitutes don't always change the game for the positive. Sometimes they can change the game for the negative. You'll actually be surprised looking at the stats at how often substitutes positively change the game coming on and how much they change the game negatively. Trust me, I know the stats, and that's a loose quote, but it's pretty much word for word what he said. Now, I don't really care about the stats. I don't really care about whether or not substitutes positively affect the game only 40% of the time and they negatively affect the game 60% of the time. I'm not really bothered. What I cared about is Everton are on the brink of relegation and potentially on the brink of falling into an abyss that we won't be able to get out of financially and, in terms of the club as a whole. And sometimes you have to look at a situation and you have to address the situation for what it is, not for what it may have been on a spreadsheet on the Friday before the game when you looked at it, or not at what it may be on a spreadsheet next week when you look at it. You have to take that punt and you have to take that risk and you have to think, don't you know what? This could change the game for the positive, so I'm going to make it happen. Sean Dyche himself made a change at Stamford Bridge with 15 minutes to go early on in the season, and he brought a young forward on in Ellis Sims. Now, the stats would have told Sean Dyche that bringing Ellis Sims on would not necessarily have had a positive outcome because they don't always have a positive outcome making substitutes. But what did it do? It had a positive outcome. Why? Because Ellis come on, he had the point to prove, he had the platform to do it. He was up against a Chelsea side who were tiring at the time, who were struggling, who weren't in great form, and we ended up getting the right side of his defender for us, wrong side of the defender, but right side for us. And he took his opportunity really, really well, and we got a point that we may all sit here at the end of the season and go, that's what's kept us up. Why? Because Sean Dyche made the decision to go, do you know what? Fuck it. You're going on, lad. Go and show me something. And Ellis Sims showed him. And I'm not saying that Ellis Sims would have absolutely, it would have been guaranteed that Ellis Sims would have come on and scored against Leicester. But what I'm saying is the stats would have been telling Sean Dyche on that night that it would not necessarily have been a positive change to bring Ellis Sims on. But he did do it. And it changed the game. And my point is, Ellis Sims could have come on Monday night against a tired Leicester team who are struggling and who have had a really sort of physical game of football, and he could have, he had the chance to make himself an Everton hero. He could have changed that game as well. Demarai Gray could have come on, again against his former club. Leicester fans would have been nervous and anxious because of that. The Leicester players would have been looking, going, oh my God, they're bringing a lad on with a load of pace here. How are we going to deal with this? Could have changed the game, and it mightn't have. And as I said, I refuse to believe that either of those substitutes would have changed the game in a negative manner. I refuse to believe that Ellis Sims would have come on and caused us to concede a goal, or Demarai Gray would have come on and caused us to concede a goal, any more than what the other players caused us to concede goals. The fact of the matter is, that's not a good enough answer from Sean Dyche today. It isn't. And maybe that's just an answer to mask the fact that, he thinks he's made a mistake and he's thinking, actually, maybe I should have changed it, but I'm going to mask it by saying the stats show that it doesn't always work. That's not a good enough answer. Because, if we are playing Wolves or we're playing Bournemouth, on the final day of the season, and it's 1-1 with 10 minutes to go, and the Bournemouth players are absolutely gassing out their arse, and you've got Demarai Gray on the bench, and the manager says, and we need to win to stay up. If we don't win, we go down. If we win, we stay up. And the manager doesn't bring him on at the end of the game, says, don't always work in your favour. We'll all be screaming for Sean Dyche to be sacked. Because sometimes you just have to take that risk. Sometimes you have to go bollocks to the stats, bollocks to what I read on that spreadsheet 3 days ago, bollocks to what I may read on the spreadsheet in 4 or 5 days' time. In this moment, this game needs an injection of fresh legs and a bit of pace, and I'm going to make that decision. But he didn't. So, if Sean Dyche wants to save Everton from relegation, then he needs to be a bit more proactive in those situations and not obsess too much on what he's read on a Word document, previously about how substitutes don't always affect games. No. Have a look at the game and actually analyse, do you know what? Bringing some fresh legs on it. And again, I'm fully aware and I understand and I appreciate all the Blues that say, well, hang on, Cam, he hasn't got much options, has he? And Demarai Gray, you slag him every week, he's not great, and Ellis Sim's only a kid. I get it. I'm not saying that we've got a bench full of world-class players to choose from, but we've got one lad who will be at the very, very least hungry and with a point to prove, and he's physical, and we've got another lad who at the very, very, very least will strike a little bit of fear in the opposition because of his pace and his ability to, to strike a ball on occasion. That is something that Sean Dyche has got to work on in these next 4 games. The stubbornness, the I know best needs to go, because it doesn't matter if you know best, doesn't matter if you are right, does not matter. What matters is that sometimes you need to take that punt, because, and again, I'm not saying we would have won the game, but we may have won the game. And the point is, the proof is in the pudding. If he wouldn't have brought Ellis Sims on against Chelsea, we wouldn't have got that draw. But he did, and we did. So, and another thing that the manager needs to do in the remaining 4 games, as we've just established then, I think for Everton to be absolutely safe, like undoubtedly safe, I think we need 6 points out of 2 games, which is horrendous, because we're probably not going to get it, because that would mean us either winning 1 away game, which at the moment looks like it's, as I said, it's more likely for me to win the lottery, or beating Manchester City at home, which, again, I don't know what's more likely, Everton to beat Man City at home or to win an away game. But, answer me that in the comments. What do you people honestly think is more likely? Because I think it's more likely for us to beat Manchester City at home, to be honest. And that isn't very likely. But we probably would stay up with 5 more points. I don't think we'd stay up with 4 more points. I'm seeing people saying we'd stay up with 4 more points. I don't think we would. Yes, we'd finish above Leeds, but 3 teams go down. And I can honestly see Nottingham Forest and Leicester both picking up at least 4 more points this season. And that would mean that we would have to pick up 5 more points. So 4 more points won't be enough. 4 more points won't be enough. 5 more points would potentially be enough to see us stay up on goal difference. So there's no room for, the stats told me that a substitute might positively impact the game. Look at what you're looking at. There's 2 sides of the game, and I'm a big believer in stats and listening to the stats and looking at the stats, but there's 2 sides of football. There's the statistics side and there's the actually what you're watching with your eyes side. Someone could tell me that, let's just use an example, I don't know, Michael Keane against Leicester had an 80% pass completion rate and won 16 out of 16 aerial duels, and statistically he was absolutely fantastic, but from what I saw with my eyes, he was an absolute calamity. So sometimes you have to go on the eye test as well and what you're looking at with your eyes and make the decision based upon that. The second thing that Sean Dyche needs to do if he wants to keep Everton in the Premier League is stop choosing players based upon your relationship with them. Now, this obviously is directly aimed at the Michael Keane decision, of course it is. And it isn't just because I don't like Michael Keane, or because I think Michael Keane's crap, or because I think whatever. The point is that statistically, both we'll look at it statistically, and we'll look at it through the eye test. Statistically, Michael Keane, when he plays for Everton, Everton concede double the amount of goals than what they do when Conor Cody plays for Everton. In the games Michael Keane has played, Everton have conceded an average of 2 per game under Sean Dyche. In the games that Conor Cody played, Everton conceded 1 per game under Sean Dyche. This is, of course. So, statistically, we are conceding more goals when Michael Keane is in the team. So that's the stats behind you. For Sean Dyche, who loves his stats, they're the stats for you. Now, whether Sean Dyche thinks Michael Keane is a very good player, as he said today in his press conference, I don't really care. Whether he's his best mate, I don't really care. The stats tell you that Everton are much, much worse defensively and concede more goals when Michael Keane is in the team. Simple. Then the eye test, to go along with the stats, will also tell you that Michael Keane is an absolute calamity. He makes mistake after mistake after mistake, week in, week out. He gets torn to bits by every forward he comes up against, pretty much. Jamie Vardy is about 48, coming to the end of his career, and he ripped him to bits the other day, spun him inside out. Michael Keane cannot start any of these next 4 games for Everton if we as fans want to seriously sit here and think, yeah, I think we've got a chance of staying up. He can't. Now, I'm not even going to discuss Yerry Mina, because we all know Yerry Mina is our best centre-half. He is. It's factual. Yerry Mina is our best centre-half. Everton's win percentage since Yerry Mina has been at the football club is significantly higher when Yerry Mina has played to when he hasn't played, regardless of whether it had been under Carlo Ancelotti, Marco Silva, Frank Lampard, Rafa Benitez. It is significantly higher when Yerry Mina has played to when he hasn't played. And he offers something up the other end of the pitch on corners and set pieces and stuff. The fact of the matter is that Sean Dyche, for far too long, has chosen Michael Keane because of a strange obsession with the fact that he believes he's a great defender. But even regardless of that, he's chosen him based off on his relationship with him. Now, give Michael Keane a chance, fine, didn't mind it. When he come in against Arsenal, I wasn't massively opposed to it. I knew that he wouldn't perform, but I wasn't opposed to it because it's a new manager coming in, giving a player a chance. But Sean Dyche was quick to ship Conor Cody out of the team after a couple of bad mistakes in a couple of games. Yet Michael Keane has been allowed to do it week in, week out, time again for a month now, and he still persists with playing him. Is that the best interest of Everton Football Club? No. Will Everton stay up with Michael Keane performing the way he has been? No. At the start of the season, and for the entirety of this season, we as Evertonians have all concluded that our biggest problem is in attack. It was always the case, even at the start of the season under Lampard, when I think we went on an unbeaten run of 5 or 6 games or something. We'd only won one of them, but we were on like a 5-game unbeaten run before we picked up our first win of the season, and they were all draws. And they were all draws because defensively we were very good, and we were solid, and we weren't conceding, and we were doing well, and it was Tarkowski and Keane, and they were working hard and battling, and everything was... Tarkowski and Cody, and they were working hard and battling, and everything was fine. The problem was going forward, we didn't have a striker. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was injured, and that's been the problem all season. Now, okay, Dom's coming back now, and we look much better with him in the team, and we look much more sharper, and he's done really well again on Monday night, and hopefully he can continue to improve on that. And I'm sure if Everton are to stay up, Dominic Calvert-Lewin will have a big part to play in that. However, we've gone from having a relatively decent defence, but with a massive hole up front and a massive problem up front, to now we're getting that player who plays up front back to fitness, back to sharpness, back to being able to play hopefully the next 4 games of the season with no problems. But now all of a sudden we've got the issue in defence because the manager is persisting with a player who very clearly isn't good enough. It needs to change. It needs to change. Sean Dyche can save Everton from relegation. He can. He can pick up the points needed The performance on Monday night showed that we've got the grit, we've got the battle, we've got the determination, and at times we've got the quality. We had something like 20 shots on Monday night, and on another day we'd have scored 4 or 5 goals. Dominic Calvert-Lewin looked really good. On another day, he buries that sitter and we win the game. However, the manager is making, just completely inexcusable decisions that, for me, are enough to see him lose his job. If Michael Keane starts on Monday against Brighton and gives a howler away and we lose that game, then I don't see the point in keeping Sean Dyche in a job. I really don't. Regardless of the next 3 games, I'm not asked. The manager has got to look at this and think what is best for the team. And statistically, and using the eye test, Michael Keane is not best for this team at centre-back. As well as the fact that sometimes you need to take that risk and make that substitution with 10-15 minutes to go. The whole point of this video is that Sean Dyche isn't all to blame for the situation that we're in. In fact, he probably takes the least blame out of everybody. The previous manager's to blame, the director of football is to blame, the board are to blame, the players are to blame. Sean Dyche's his blame is very minimal in this situation. But he still takes blame because he's making decisions that, quite frankly, none of us can get our head round. And decisions that if he didn't make them and he made opposite ones, we may have had a better chance of staying up. The reality is for me, for Everton to stay up now, we need 6 points out of the next 2 games. We could stay up on 5, but it would be based on other results and goal difference. We're not going to stay up on 4, and anything below 4, we're gone. In my opinion, we're gone. So, the manager needs to get everything perfect in these next 4 games. In fact, he's even got, don't get me wrong, I don't want to give a defeatist mentality out there, but one of these games is Man City at home, so one of the 4 is already pretty much stricken off as a write-off. So he's already got 1 write-off, really. Nobody expects us to get anything out of Man City at home, regardless of the decisions that Sean Dyche makes. But he's got to get the other 3 games perfect. 1 win and 2 draws might be enough. 2 wins will probably be enough. Less than that, I don't think it will be enough, personally. And he's got to start making the right decisions because he's not making the right decisions. Cheemers has donated €5, says, do you see Everton coming straight back up if they get relegated? Only if there is a complete refresh. For me, only if the board, members are moved on, the owner brings in people that actually know about football. I personally would move the manager on if we go down and get somebody fresh in with fresh ideas. Everything would have to be done. It would have to be a complete total reset. If things were to stay the same, then no, I don't see that. But yeah, the reality is it's going to be a thankless task to keep Everton up this season. But with the decisions the manager's making, he's not helping himself, and those decisions have to change. And if those decisions do change, then I firmly do think he could keep Everton in the Premier League. However, we will wait and see. Blue says, same with Brighton, to be honest. They've just slapped Wolves 6-0 with a B team. Yeah, that will be an extremely difficult game as well. They do play Man United, though, today. So that may make it a little bit easier. And Joe has donated $1.99. He says, I'm a Leeds fan. We're going down together. Thank you very much, Joe. Hopefully not. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me? Do you think there is a possibility that Everton stay up this season? And if so, how do you think we manage that? Or do you think that it's done now and we're pretty much done and dusted and gone? If you have enjoyed this one, please hit the like button. We will be back with the game preview to that Brighton game tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for that one. Massive thanks to everybody for watching the live comments. Really appreciate it. And if you're watching this YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. Big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you later.